Hi everyone. My name is Shazia Khan, and the unit we'll be doing is legal research methods, and we'll be doing learning outcome 3 today, which is to look at more onto critically reviewing literature review and relevant to the legal topic. So, just a summary of what we did in the last session, which was to be able to develop legal research approaches. We looked at the importance of legal research in regards to producing a legal research project paper. We also looked at how to develop our legal research approaches. We looked at how it's important to choose a relevant legal research project. We looked at creating appropriate research aims and objectives. And we looked at the aims and objectives with justifications and a formula for a detailed plan for the research project. And we also looked at the SMART objectives and why they were important for developing the aims and objectives of the legal project. So, things like, we looked at the way you need to measure it, the acronym for SMART, how you develop it, SMART, measurable, achievable, relevance, and time bound. We looked at why they were so important in achieving the aims and objectives, and why it's really important that you identify your aims and objectives at the start as well. We also looked at things like looking at the importance of legal research and why it's important to develop it. So you can do an analysis why it's important to look at societal needs, the changing in the law, why there's a need for that, why we need to look at that before we get into choosing a research project. It's also important to have a research plan, an overview of the plan, what you intend to do, how you intend to conduct your research, and, what you intend to get at the end of the project. And within a research plan, you need to determine your goals, define, identify any sort of research methods that you'll be using, and, looking at important thing again, and reiterate this is, establishing timelines as well, when you intend to do that. And what resources you intend to use, how you intend to create this plan, because it's really important. And also we looked at what should a research plan include. Things like, identifying your SMART specific project goals, individual objectives, any sort of research strategies that you're going to use, key project background, how to write a plan we looked at, and defining your project's individual objectives, selecting research methods such as maybe interviews, surveys, questionnaires, what you intend to do, and also things like, trying to identify what you intend to do, what strategies you want to use to get this final project approved, and then how you plan to research all that, because research is really important in part of a research project, and we looked at that earlier. Now we're going to look at learning outcome 3, which is to be able to critically review relevant legal topic areas. So what your plan is, what you intend to do, because for learning outcome 3 you need to be analysing different theoretical approaches, also looking at creating a structured literature review. You need to make sure that you choose a research area that you have an interest in, and then part of task 3, which will be doing a literature review, you need to be able to look at the approaches and write an academic piece of work on what you're going to use, what literature review you're going to do on a specific topic, and also include your critical evaluation of the material. So we go through that as we're going through, okay? So key terminology Number one, theoretical approaches, which is different perspectives or frameworks used to analyse a legal research problem. This may include legal positivism, natural law theory, legal realism, critical legal studies. Number two, you could look at structured literature review, which is an organised systematic presentation of existing scholarly knowledge on a particular topic, often including sections such as an introduction, methods, results, discussion, and conclusion. Number three, evaluation. So assessing the strengths and weaknesses of your existing research. And this is really important because you need to be looking, when you're identifying strengths and weaknesses, you need to be looking at sources that are credible, the methodology used, and the validity of your findings. Number four, identifying any sort of gaps. So recognizing areas where existing knowledge is lacking or incomplete, indicating opportunities for further research. Number five, looking at theoretical framework, so a conceptual framework that guides the research by providing a lens through which to interpret data and analyze findings. This may involve selecting and justifying relevant theories to inform the research. Some areas of examples of research areas that you may consider. And this is just an example, and they can go on and there's different areas. So anything to do with cybercrime or fraud or money laundering, international trade, if there's with the jurisdictions in the different countries, maybe looking at the elements of international trade or cybercrime within international trade, climate change in international law, looking at different jurisdictions again, or the impact of World Trade Organization on, or GATT, in regards to legal issues around trading. So these are just some examples that I've come up with so that you've got an idea of, what is the, maybe looking at any sort of research projects. So looking at 3.1, which is to critically analyze different theoretical approaches to a legal research problem. So there are multiple methods of distinguishing an examination hall. During the perusing of the current writing, at the point when one becomes familiar with effective writing in a specific field, it is then very simple to track down a whole or researchable issue. And that was in the book of Corral 2018. One method of recognizing exploration hall is by examining the necessities of others, such as a feeling of disappointment coming from a specific gathering. An exploration hall can exude from media exclusion, or on the other hand, paying attention to partners at public gatherings. And that was in the book of Duncan et al. 2012. Thusly, the specialist might distinguish an examination hall from current critical press reports. So there might be something out there that's quite prominent and that's quite interesting that you want to kind of challenge. An examination hall can likewise radiate from research antiques. The term research antiquities here alludes to the deliberate inclinations, uncontrolled and unexpected, that can compromise the inside or outside legitimacy of one research needs, subsequently making an exploration hall for additional request or examination. Along these lines, the exploration of the hall at the beginning of the examination question and the basic writing survey is a fundamental component in considering the exploration project. So there's so much out there for you to try to evaluate, to have a look at, where you're going to pick up the topic, how you're going to research the topic, evaluate the research. So you need to be looking out there. It may be in the press, it may be in the public gatherings, dependent. Ethical aspects. So the sources and information used in this research paper are completely authentic, and they are recognized and permitted to be used as secondary data sources in the research paper. So make sure your resources you use are credible. It's really important that they're credible. This work is completely done by the researcher, and there's no sign of plagiarism in the work. So that was in the book of Jacob et al. 2020. The critical writing audit or literature review distinguishes the hypothesis supporting a specific exploration. The theories may decide the approach to take on in a specific examination. So a hypothesis in the research system alludes to the method of sorting out a problematic situation. Theories address conditional answers for issues. Evaluation of arguments. So a hypothesis is a speculation about a peculiarity, clarification of how or why something occurs. So it's really important in regards to why this thing occurs that you want to talk about. Indeed, it's an explanation that clarifies what is estimated or depicted. So truth be told, any broad articulations about cause or impact are hypothesis-based, basically implicitly. And that's by Hutchinson, 2015. The hypothesis is an assertion of connections between units noticed or approximated in experimental world. Scholarlists call attention to that the theory is comprised of 4 parts. These are meanings of terms or factors, an area where the hypothesis applies, a bunch of connections between variables, and exact expectations. That's Khalil et al. 2010. Authentic claims and prescient cases indicate whether a specific occasion could, ought to, or would happen. Thus, the essential capacity of a hypothesis is to depict, clarify, foresee, or control peculiarities in any assortment of settings. Then we go on to looking at 3.2, which is to create a structured and thorough critical review. So this study covers the legal critical literature assessment within the critical framework of scholarly logic. The study investigates that what makes a critical literature review useful in research. It implies that critical review literature assessments are useful in research when they make it easy to identify research gaps in the defined context. Webley, 2010. A legal critical literature review is the most effective when it establishes the proper environment for research and detects flaws in scholarship to identify research gaps, and then transforms this conclusion into primary research. So a literature review can actually serve a number of purposes, including indicating things like the current level of thinking, or indicating gaps, as we mentioned, and within current knowledge. Background information to overview of the topic. Your aim should be to correctly balance the use of the quotation from the work of others and critically review and evaluate your own. It is far too easy to liberally sprinkle references across about with no consideration as to how these would fit into the topic. So it's really important that when you, you formulate a literature review, that you are closely related to the chosen topic. And it should not be used to document all that you have read on the topic. If you are in doubt, concentrate on the most recent papers, although you should aim to include key studies that you have widely cited elsewhere, regardless of how old they are. It's advisable that you checked that you should refer to a range of relevant projects representing a variety of different research methods, rather than concentrating on just one. As in above depiction of the basic writing audit, the whole alludes to missing component in the current writing. It is missing component or whole that makes an original copy publishable. A whole in a writing audit helps a specialist in 3 stages, as Kerr et al. Identified in 1986, in detailing of examination, the issue questions, in distinguishing proof of the significant speculations and examinations. Consider also in the later investigation and translation of information. An examination whole is an unmistakable, exact assertion of the inquiry to issue that is explored fully intent or viewing as a reply or arrangement. Henceforth, an examination whole is an issue of region recognizable by the peruser's knowledge, which warrants research, as in Kothari 2004. Maybe this is because of an absence of sufficient data, the presence of one-sided data, or then again, the right data has not been conveyed because of irregularities or wrong summations. So it's really important when starting your initial reading materials, do make use of, where you're going to get the resources from. Also, make use of any sort of resources that are, credible resources. You need to make sure that the data you are using is credible. And the main thing in doing a literature review, or even identifying a successful project, the research project, is planning. You need to have a clear structure, what you intend to do, how you intend to do it, timeline, as we mentioned in the learning outcome 2, plan, have your SMART project goals in place. It's important that you identify, the importance of research, because it's the whole point of a research literature review in law is to identify any sort of gaps in the knowledge and where the research is needed. I'll give you an example. For example, in domestic violence, there is the law relating to domestic violence 2021 law. There are some gaps in there, and it needs to be indicated that that area there are gaps in the law that need to be identified. So that might be some areas that people consider. So literature review, again, is a survey of scholarly sources on a specific topic. It provides overview of the current knowledge, allowing you to identify relevant theories, methods, and gaps in the existing research that you can later apply to your paper, thesis, or dissertation topic, as we mentioned. The literature review will indicate what is known about your chosen area of research, and will show you how further contributions from further research can be made. So it's really important that you look at identifying the importance of your literature review, and you need to prevents you from duplicating the same information as others writing in your field, allowing you to find your own unique approach to your topic area. Literature review gives you the familiarity with the knowledge in your field, giving you the chance to analyze the significance of the additional research that you are doing. So it's really important that you're able to look at the additional research that you're going to do, how that is going to apply to it, and why it's so important. It will focus on fixed ideas, critical approach, and the whole point is to express your findings in a way that is understandable in the legal research area. So there are 5 key steps to writing a literature review. Search for the relevant literature. So make sure you are searching for credible information. Make sure you are looking for information that is going to help you. Make sure that you are looking at identifying the area you want to look at, and make sure that you are able to search for relevant literature, get clearly defined literature, and identify any sort of keywords that you need to be looking at. The next one is evaluate sources. So make sure you read through the sources and what they are doing. Evaluate any sort of results from the sources. Make sure the sources you use are, again, I will say this again, are credible, and make sure you read any landmark studies, major theories in the field of the research, articles, journals, which should be included in your literature review, and make sure there are recent literature that you are using, not something historical, and summarize and evaluate your sources that you're thinking about using, take notes and cite your sources. It's important to identify them. The third step, which is to identify themes, debates. So begin by organizing your literature review's argument and structure. You need to understand the connection between the trends and patterns, any sort of debates, conflicts, any sort of gaps that are missing. You need to make that clear in your literature review, and make sure that you are there are any sort of theories that you are using, any sources, outline them as well, and also look at the most recent research, outline any sort of the next one is outline the structure, and that's really important. Organizing a body of that literature review. You should have a rough idea, depending on the length of the literature review, trace the development. So chronological, thematical, organize the literature review in subsections if you want, methodological, identify the different discipline fields, a variety of methods that you're going to use. Qualitative, again, quantitative, which one you want to use to empirical research. Divide the literature into sociological, legal, cultural sources. So, you may be looking at theoretical framework. You can discuss theories, models, And you can also look at identifying any sort of approaches that you want to do to create this research plan. And then finally write your literature review. So look like any other academic, you have an introduction, a main body, and a conclusion. The introduction should establish the focus and purpose of the literature review. And it should, have, the basis of the literature review, reiterate the problem or research question, give a brief outline, and also you can emphasize or highlight gaps in the literature. A good literature review doesn't just summarize sources, it analyzes, synthesizes, and critically evaluates to give you a clear picture of the state of the knowledge on the subject. In regards to your literature review, it should have an introduction, a main body, depending on the length. The body could be in subsections or it could not. If you don't want to use that, it's up to you. So you could have a summary and a synthesis, analyze and interpret or critically evaluate, and write in a well-structured paragraphs, because that's really important. And obviously check your grammar and punctuation. And then it should have a conclusion. So it should summarize your key findings from the literature and emphasize their significance and their importance. If a literature review is part of your paper, reiterate your research, address gaps and contribute new knowledge, or discuss how you're drawn from existing theory to build a framework of your knowledge. So it's really important that you're able to do that, and identify, why literature reviews are so important. So literature review literally is a survey of scholarly sources such as books, journals, and these related to specific topic or research question. It's often written as a part of a dissertation or research plan. And the purpose is, to have a literature review is to familiarize yourself with the state of knowledge on the top subject area, to ensure that you're not repeating what others have done, to identifying, as we mentioned, gaps in knowledge and unresolved problems, to develop theoretical framework and methodology, and to provide an overview of your findings. And writing a literature review shows that reader how your work relates to the existing research and what new insights it will contribute. So, research, your literature review is part of learning outcome 3, which you need to complete a literature review and record this. So some examples of literature reviews, and I've put some links there, and they are quite good that you try to have a look at these, because it shows the different styles of people. So there's 4 examples there of different areas in a research paper that someone has done a research review on, a literature review. So you could have a look at them and have a look at how they've looked at doing a research review, and it will help you identify and maybe guide you in doing something. So there were 4 there. Have a look at them, please, in your own time, and the links are there for that as well. So so for this learning outcome 3.1 and 3.2, you need to create a literature review. Firstly, in learning outcome 2, you need to be able to choose a research area first, then do a literature review. You need to produce and select one. You need which we mentioned earlier, a literature review is a piece of academic writing demonstrating your knowledge and understanding of the academic literature on a specific topic. A literature review also includes the critical review of the material used. So it could be things like, sources, your resources that you use, how you're going to use these resources, make sure they're credible resources again, make sure you're identifying up-to-date resources. You need to identify existing scholarly knowledge on a particular topic area. You need to compare and contrast current research. You need to evaluate the research by highlighting strengths and weaknesses, identify problems in the existing knowledge, which we looked at, gaps maybe in the area, highlight how your study is attempting to address a gap in the research, and provide a rationale or justification for your study. So you need to, other people will be doing similar areas or may have done a similar area. You need to be able to provide a rationale for why you are doing that area and why there are gaps in that area. So you need to be able to identify addressing these gaps in your research. And the whole point is having a rationale behind that. You need to also look at features and ways to do literature review, so the generic selection of literature, spotting the sources of literature, justification of any appropriate selection of literature, the selection of theories, as we mentioned earlier, conceptualization of research phenomena, including theories, so the strength of credentials of relevant theoretical work, whether they're credible or not, independently locate a range of legal sources with familiar databases, and evaluate any sort of suitability of these for a particular research purpose. Also, you need to locate non-legal sources with a limited range of familiar databases on your research proposal. Make sure that you are doing your literature review and make sure that it's structured and a thorough critical literature review on your area, research area that you'd intend to do. Again, I've put some examples on the slides that you could go away and look at and make sure that they will guide you. There are different areas to the law side of it, but they will help you and guide you to how to produce a good literature review and a critical literature review. In conclusion, a legitimate basic writing audit's parts can be summed up individually as follows. A proposition is a type of contention that presents pertinent data in invalidation. It is an old school structure and has been for thousands of years. It is vital for the forerunner to proposing a law. The examination is the social occasion of information in an express setting. The hypothesis depicts human peculiarities in a predetermined setting. Information is an abstract insight and mindfulness. An examination hole is an issue distinguished by the pruser's understanding where the right data has not been conveyed. And that was from Gawas et al. 2017. A literature search is a quest for proof wanted to support a contention. Subsequently, the basic writing survey sets a setting for examination and fills the exploration holes with new insight and consciousness of an apt contention. The basic writing survey comprises of certain sections, each of its motivation, and the result of whose contention is to figure the exploration question, a proposition proclamation, and examination targets. The lawful basic writing survey will be maximally compelling when it sets research setting and recognizing false notions in the grant to find research holes, and afterwards forms the result in an examination question, a postulation, proclamation, and examination targets. The literary purpose for a literature review is used to focus on the literature, why it is so important, and it's there to search for any sort of relevant literature, evaluate any sources, and look at any gaps, as we mentioned earlier. You know, it's really important within a literature review because it establishes the authors, which will be yourself, with an in-depth understanding and knowledge of the field area. And it gives you the background of the research, and it portrays the scientific manuscript plan of examining the results. But you need to, as an individual, you need to be able to have a passion for the area. You know, you need to be able to have an interest in the area so that you're able to research it more, because if you find the area quite boring, it's not going to help you carry on and get to your final goal. What makes a good literature review will usually do some of all of so introduce the reader to the specific area of interest, organize your relevant sources, be on top of it, and start with the more general broad themes and narrowing towards the more specific themes, and introduce the relevant theories to the area of study. So you need to make it quite interesting, and your final element is to identify the gaps. So for learning outcome 3, you need to be producing a structured and thorough critical review, and I've put some examples on there for you that you need to go into and have a look at. These are some references that we've used for learning outcome 3, which should help and support you when looking at the areas. And there's also additional ebooks and journals on Moodle for this unit that you can refer to. Any questions, learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk. Make sure you are using Moodle to get the ebooks, get the resources to help you create a thorough critical literature review for learning outcome 3. Submission of the assignment is to be done on learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk, and the assignment submission is 2 weeks of the completion of the units. So you need to make sure that you're on top of things in regards to getting your research plan together for learning outcome 2. And for learning outcome 3, you need to be able to critically analyse theoretical approaches in a legal research problem and create a structured and thorough critical literature review. And you can't do the literature review unless you have a research plan in mind. So if you have a research plan in mind, make sure you are doing that. So we've finished learning outcome 3 now. The next learning outcome we'll be doing is learning outcome 4. So thank you for attending today's session, and I will see you in the next learning outcome.